We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/match. Just go to Indeed.com/match right now and support this show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/match. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Let your imagination soar with Audible. With stories across every genre, from expert advice to fantasy, you'll be inspired to imagine new worlds, possibilities, and ways of thinking. Listening can even lead to a positive change in your mood, habits, and overall well-being. As an Audible member, you'll get to choose one title a month to keep from their entire catalog, including bestsellers and new releases. Allow yourself to delve into the spooky this season by listening to classics like Stephen King's The Shining and Pet Sematary. There's more to imagine when you listen. New members can try Audible free for 30 days. Visit audible.com/imagine or text imagine to 500-500. That's audible.com/imagine or text imagine to 500-500.
This is the Indy 11 Coaches Show, brought to you by your Central Indiana Ford dealers. Sit back, relax, and enjoy a beverage from 450 North Brewing, the official beverage of the Indy 11 Coaches Show. Now, let's get an inside look at the players, tactics, and opponents with Indy 11 head coach Sean McAuley.
Welcome back to another edition of the Indy 11 Coaches Show with Sean McAuley as always, and I am Ian Gilmore, presented by your Central Indiana Ford dealers. Thanks for joining us for episode 8. We have a preview of not only October, but the LIPAFC contest, and we're going to talk about the month of September that passed as well. Unofficially dubbing this the LIPAFC IXI CSPPSP BYCIFD, if you can keep up with that. That's the Lousiville Indianapolis Proximity Association Football Contest, Indy 11 Coaches Show podcast, preview show, presented by your local Indiana Ford dealers. If we can come up with something shorter next time, I don't know, we'll try to figure it out. So we'll chat all things preview of Lou City, Indy 11, but do want to recap a bit of the past month first, Sean. Went on the road twice this past month. The first one was a 0-0 draw against Hartford. That was the first of them. I'm curious about kind of playing on the road in this league, especially, I think this past week, New Mexico lost to Sacramento 4-0 on the road, and they've been the best team in the West all year. Can you talk a little bit about how you feel the difficulty is playing on the road in this league, and is it dependent on things like places that have an atmosphere versus places that don't, versus, maybe the facilities at certain places? Kind of your thoughts on that stuff?
Yeah, it probably does, and but ultimately it boils down to the 11 versus the 11, and and who's better on the day will win the game. There is, travel elements that will play a part in some away games, and depending on which club you're at, and location, and you may have a better travel schedule than others. You might not need to bus to as many games because you're too far away, or you might be really close to others that you can bus to games and it's not too far for you. Or you can be in the middle of that. Well, do we fly or do we bus? And you have to make a decision. And again, sometimes based on a short week, I know that some teams, and obviously this is budget factored in and money or whatever, because it's not easy to do it, but some teams will go and play away from home and on the Tuesday and then travel either directly to the next opponent, or they'll stay in market where they've just played and travel up the night before, and instead of making that midweek trip back to home, stay a night, train, back on the road again. I think Louisville did that the last time they played that type of week. I think they went down to Tampa midweek, or went to Tampa at the weekend, played, stayed over, and then travelled to Detroit midweek from Tampa. Which, they look at that and think, well, that gives us the best competitive advantage to try and win win the game. Because obviously Louisville's on the way back up. I don't know what the flight schedules were, and it's different to the MLS, I would say, because outside now of the MLS teams all taking charters, the majority of the MLS teams are in major cities with major airports, so you could, pretty much be guaranteed a flight or a connected flight really quickly and easily, whereas some of our markets are not in them major cities, and that's where travel does play its part.
Yeah, I think El Paso has like eight terminals at their airport, so
yeah.
We're not getting a direct flight from Indianapolis to El Paso.
No, and I think we played, it might have been Hartford, or it might have been the one before, Rhode Island, and you would think Rhode Island being slightly north and east of where we are, we connected through Tampa. So, it's difficult sometimes to get them direct flights.
Yeah. Is it just kind of the layovers that make the flight parts tough sometimes?
Yeah, I would say so. If you're the day before a game and you've got a 4-hour layover in one of the airports, that can mess with your recovery from training or your preparation in terms of food and everything else. So, yeah, but no excuse really when you turn up on the day. It's 11 versus 11.
Yeah. Well, you can't really break out like the soccer tennis pitch inside the airport.
No.
Depending on the airport. It's one of the less busy ones. Who knows? But.
Our last trip away when we got beat in Carolina, we thought that we were splitting the group up on the way back.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And like into different flights?
Yeah. Yeah. Because basically, I think our flight got cancelled, but then got reinstated at the last minute. I think we were putting 12 on one, 10 on another, and then, the others scrambling for themselves.
Yeah. Shout out Shelby. Always trying to figure those things out.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's on the fly like that as well, too.
Yeah, she's great.
On the flip side of the away matches in the last month, you wanted to make sure you took care of business at home, and you did that 3-1 against El Paso, and then 4-0 against Miami most recently. Your main takeaways from those matches was what?
We needed to get goals. Pleased we got goals. Pleased we got goals at home. And, overall, I think solid performances. El Paso game, I thought we were good all the game through. The Miami game, I thought we could give a little bit more in the second half than we did in the first half, and we did do and came out 4-0.
You mentioned that on the broadcast as well, and then I think to us post game that you kind of felt like I don't remember your exact words, and I don't want to put words in your mouth here, but like maybe the players have been taking things a little bit for granted in that first half and thought it would come easier than it was.
I think the players worked incredibly hard to keep the ball in the opponent's half and stop them from playing, and they played at a real high intensity and a high tempo, and then didn't relax and calm down when they had the ball to make the most important final pass. And when you do one like that, then you've got to be, as a player, you've got to assess and go, well, I need to slow down a bit. When you do two, when you do three, I think they just thought the chances would keep coming. And games can change with goals. So if they score or something happens, then it becomes a real uphill battle for us. So I just felt as though we didn't take enough care in the first half to make sure that we scored. We just thought, well, another chance will come. If I miss it this one, another chance will come. And I was a bit disappointed with that. Was
that the difference in the second half then?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we had more quality in the final pass. Took more care.
Yeah. Augie had a hat trick that night. When you have a goal scorer, and I think we touched a little bit about this with Rome and kind of just a floodgates opening. But when you have a goal scorer that's been in a rut for a little bit, do you have any extra conversations with them, or is there any extra training, anything along those lines? Like, what can you do as a manager to try and get them out?
I think you've got to try and keep faith with them. Spoke to Augie about, setting some targets. Got to remember, Augustine now has got 8 goals for us. Last season he got 9 from open play. He's not taking penalties this year.
Yeah. 3 in the Open Cup too.
Yeah. So if we think about, where he's currently probably on course for another season of what he's done previously. So you just got to keep faith and keep them believing in making the right runs and continue to try and get chances. And I would say with both Augie and Romario, there hasn't been games really where they've not had a chance.
Yeah.
They've just not stuck them in. And then at the weekend, obviously, Augie got his hat-trick, which I'm really pleased for.
So is that confidence just playing them? Like if they know that they're still playing, still getting those same
minutes? You play them as long as they're working in training. If they're working in training, then they'll still get because they're creating opportunities. If they're not creating opportunities by making the runs or creating for themselves, and then they're not putting the work in training, it's probably not going to happen again on the weekend. So that's when they get dropped.
Do you have a favorite goal from the last 2 home games that was scored?
I think I like, obviously, Augie's last goal because I think Collie does really well and we pass forward and run forward, and I like the one where we have the build up and Logan puts the ball across, but I think any goal that goes in is a favourite.
It's hard to disseminate between them. I'm curious with kind of the Miami-Louisville back-to-back games. You don't often get, and I'll say on paper because I don't want to disparage anybody, but Miami is the worst team points-wise in the league. Louisville's the best. So when you're going from those games back-to-back, is preparation different because you're looking at different teams? Is it just different because obviously you're playing different teams that do different things tactically or in terms of mindset? Anything different between the two?
No, we just have to prepare again for a tough opponent. In terms of our preparation for Miami, we knew we'd have a lot of the ball, and in terms of Louisville, it's probably going to be a bit more even in terms of who has the ball. So we're looking at a little bit more defensively against Louisville, what we need to do, and then structurally in terms of where and how we press the ball is different. But in terms of the week's work, it'll be the same rhythm.
We've talked before about kind of the importance of tactics and sometimes not the non-importance of tactics, but how the style is sometimes more and more important and probably majority of the time more important. But I wanted to ask you, you've done different things in terms of formations at least this season. The style hasn't changed in terms of you want to score more goals than the opponent and the things that kind of are adjacent to that. But when you do, you switched to back four recently, how long does it take for guys to kind of understand what to do in certain moments? Just in terms of maybe the outside backs when they've got 3 center backs behind them compared to 2 when they can step versus when they can't. How long does it take players to kind of get used to that? Can you do that in just 1 week when you switch between them?
It shouldn't take long, and if it does, it's probably the wrong player.
Okay.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
We talk about tactics. I think you talk about tactics.
I talk about it more than you do.
The pundits around the game and social media.
Yeah.
If you speak to any head coach and watch any head coach across every single league in the world, they don't talk about tactics as much as what everybody else does. If you look at all of the head coaches, they just say we've got to outwork the opponent, we've got to, match them in their effort and their commitment. Nobody really, you never hear Pep Guardiola say, yeah, what I did is I pushed John Stones into midfield to create that 3-man midfield. He just talks about the game being the game. But obviously, the tacticians of this world, which is obviously people in the media, they've got to do that job, they want to talk about tactics. We go through the tactics. Trust me, we go through tactics all week. I liken it very much to, at this moment in time, we're working in professional football, like the elite professional football in the country. Second division, whatever you want to call it, they are professional footballers. Mm-hmm. We are teaching what you would call, in education, university, professor, doctorate type classes. So why do we have to go through 2 plus 2? They should know that. They should know all that stuff. What we've got to do is in this area of the game, is make sure we balance off the right people with the right people and understand each other's strengths and weaknesses and make sure that it's best for the team against the opposition that you're playing against and sticking to the style that we want to try and do, because that's the recruitment of the professional player that you want to have in your team or in your classroom. But realistically, we are educating elite, doctorate, PhD students. So why do we teach elementary education in terms of soccer? Does that sit all right with you?
Yeah, no, it does. It does, for sure.
Okay.
Okay, so you've got these games back to back, and upcoming is the big one now. And usually we kind of just say like, hey, in this month, what do you have to do to be successful? But I do want to kind of talk about a bit more just about Louisville because it's our biggest rivalry. Obviously, it's probably the best rivalry in the league. We might be a little biased, but I think that's pretty fair to say. And the real gauntlet of the run-in kind of happens now. 5 to go, all against Eastern Conference teams, all of them being above the playoff line, 3 of them with more points than us right now. And a 3-game week is tossed in there as well, too. The last time we played Louisville, it was kind of, an exciting spectacle being the first USL game on big CBS. So much has changed since then, and that feels like years ago. Do you take anything from how things went that day?
Yeah, you got to. I mean, we got beat 5-3, so, you don't want that to happen again. But our team's changed a lot, We've made some moves because we probably wasn't balanced well enough at the start of the season. They've been doing what they've been doing for 10, 11 years or whatever it is, and they've stuck to the same formula, the same progression of players in terms of the way they play. So it's good for them. They've got their way. We're starting ours, and we are different because we need to be different because what we've done in the past has not succeeded. So we've now gone through that little bit of a spell where we turn things around a little bit, move things around, and now we have to try and get some consistency with the group that we've got to try and compete against what is the best team in the league.
How would you define kind of their style?
They play the same system, they play the same style. How would you define it?
Louisville?
Yeah, because pundits want to talk about a possession-based approach and all that.
You're not going to get that from me.
No, but what I'm saying is they don't have as much possession of the ball as the opponent on average in every game, if you averaged every game. And I can only tell you this from looking at statistics, which are objective measures. What they do really, really well is every time they get the ball, they want to try and score a goal. And what they've done is they've got the players who can do it and can carry it out. I want to play a similar way, and that's we're not there yet. And that's why we sometimes don't have as much possession of the ball, because every time we get it, we try and score. And every time Louisville get the ball, they try and score a goal. And if you think and look at the distance of passing and everything else that they do, and the location of where the final pass comes from, and how they get into areas, you'll see that they go very direct and very quickly, and they've got real good quality.
How do you thwart that?
We've got to come up and match that to start with. And if it is going to be an end-to-end game, making sure that our preventative marking on situations when we have the ball and we're attacking, trying to score, making sure that we're not too open. And I thought in the last game when we played against them, we scored 3 goals at Louisville, which is, I know Rhode Island scored, I think they won 5-2 or something in the game. They don't usually do that at home. So we did really well to score 3 goals. We were just too open. So we're going to have to tighten things up at the back.
Can you expound a little bit on preventative marking, what you mean by that?
When we have the ball, so it's, if we're attacking, trying to score a goal, and the left back, which all season's been Aidan Stanley, is making an overlap to try and cross the ball, making sure that the right back is picking up any attacking players that they have who are responsible for early transition. So once we cross it, if we don't get the first touch of the ball, and they do, when it lands at the edge of the box, we need to be strong enough there with our preventative marking, to stop them from getting another pass to get out and over the halfway line.
Okay. They already had one of
Tactics.
the best... There it is. They already had one of the best strikers in the league in Wilson Harris, and then they went and bought Philip Goodrum. What are kind of the challenges of... Actually, you went over the challenges already, so I guess we don't necessarily know how they're going to line up. They usually, I think, when they initially got Goodrum, didn't really play both at the same time, but then they both started in Detroit. Is Goodrum going to be back, or is he suspended still? Actually?
I think he'll be back because they also play Loudon, don't they, in midweek, so
okay.
I think he'll probably be back.
I was going to say my question almost didn't matter. Yeah. But now that I thought about that, is that something that you'll kind of just go through both of their strengths with defenders during the week, and then whenever you get the lineup card, kind of, telling them whatever they need to do kind of right before the game, or how does that work when you don't exactly know who's...
We'll have a look at it. They'll look at it. We show them on video. I think that's the first process. We show them on video. And we'll look at, the strengths and weaknesses of both players. Both are pretty similar in terms of in and around the box, the way they make runs. And it's all dependent upon they play a midweek match. So if they rotate, they might play one and then not play the other and do that sort of thing. So we'll give our best estimate what we think the starting lineup is, but the players will know the strengths and weaknesses of everybody in the team come when we get it an hour before kickoff. They'll already know.
With it being a 3-game week, in the past you've kind of done the, play a guy 60 minutes, not necessarily rest someone for the whole game and then play someone different the whole next game. Obviously, I'm not asking you to reveal any of your plans, but I'm sure you've got some sort of eye towards Loudon on the Tuesday after.
Yeah, so we've got some natural rotation because Diz comes out because of suspension. We might look at changing another couple of other things just to keep us fresh for the following 2 games.
Well, how does Hayden White look initially?
He's going to probably be out for the next 2, might be available for the 3rd, so then that's another rotation that can come into the group.
Yeah. Against Louisville, what do you feel internally are the things that are really important to execute to have a good go of it?
They've lost 6 games all season, and they've only had 2 games where they've not scored. So that tells you that I think there was maybe a 1-0 defeat in that. But if we are going to win the game, we need to defend well. That's, I said. You never win a game if you don't score. So it comes back to we're going to have to really block off the central areas of the field when they have the ball, because their midfield 4, or the 2 holding midfield players and the 2 players that play underneath Harris, the striker, very clever in their movement, and we'll have to block that off. And if we allow them in areas wide, we'll try as best to stop crosses because they have a lot of bodies that get in the box. But I'd rather pick something that we have to allow them to have. I'd rather have them have the ball in wider areas than coming straight through the middle of us. So for us to get a goal, we need to be very good in terms of retaining possession of the ball in their half of the field, because the majority of their goals come from winning the ball and going immediately towards our goal. Really good counter-attacking team.
So would you say that you can? I'd say against Miami, the press worked really well, pretty much all game. So would you say that like a similar kind of approach in doing that will be successful? Or?
Moments in the game, I think we'll have to do that, and then there'll be other moments in the game where they'll have more quality than what. No disrespect to Miami, but more quality. So when they play out from the back, they'll be able to pass it round you. And if you're late on your pressure, on your press, and the secondary press is not there, you'll get murdered.
And we don't want that to happen.
No.
This will be the first time you're managing in that one at home. Just kind of a message to supporters, and hopefully they come on out. I think the weather's supposed to be perfect, so
I mean,
it's shaping up to be brilliant.
To be fair, we don't really need to say anything to them because they know how huge the game is, and they act the exact same in every single game. So we know what we're getting from the sports. What we've got to do as a team is try and give them something back to shout about. But what I would say is, in terms of where we're at, we need the points, so we need the help and we need the support, and we also need to recognise the fact that there's only one thing that I want to make sure that doesn't happen is we don't want them to, because this the scenario, right? Of if they beat Loudon, they can win the championship ours.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we don't want that to happen.
No, definitely not.
So that's the big motivation for us, and the big motivation. We don't want to have them do that in front of our supporters. That's rivalry in sports. If it happens, it won't be because of our game. If they lift the trophy at our place, it won't be because of our game. It's because of the previous 28 wins that they've had. And that's why they've won the championship. But I want to make sure that they don't do it at our stadium in front of our fans.
Yeah, that's important. One of those culture things, too. Cool. I think we've set things up pretty good for Saturday for that one against Louisville. If you are there on Saturday, you can find your way to the 450 North Spirits and Brewing tent /stand/deck. They've got a lot of things, so you can go and find 450 North just about wherever you want in the stadium. Today, I think we're mixing it up. I think Sean's got the Oktoberfest. I've got the bourbon cream soda. So thank you to our official beverage partner of the Coaches Show podcast, 450 North Spirits and Brewing. Again, you can get your own on Saturday on game days. Louisville Indy is the best rivalry in the USL Championship. You are very familiar with some of the best rivalries in football. What is your favorite?
Celtic Rangers. Yeah.
Nothing else beats that.
Liverpool Man United was big. Like
when you were there?
When I was playing there in England, Liverpool, Man United's huge, bigger than Man City, Man United. Man United had a rivalry against Arsenal because of the two teams at the time. They've obviously got a rival with Man City and stuff like that. Liverpool, Manchester United was huge, but there is no bigger rivalry than Celtic Rangers. You've got the Milan derby, Madrid derby, you've got Barcelona, Real Madrid, you've got Boca River, and all of them, I'm presuming, are fantastic. But Celtic and Rangers is something, if you haven't been to watch a game of football, that is incredible. And I think at this moment in time, they don't allow the away supporters in, and I think they're going to bring that back because they've realised the fact that the game is about the supporters, and so it should be. And, don't let the small minority of people that want to chant bad things or do bad things around the stadium ruin it for everybody else, because it is an unbelievable spectacle.
For those that aren't very familiar with Scottish football, why is that one so big?
Religion's a big thing, and just steeped in history of you could possibly say hatred, and that's a strong word, but they don't like each other at all. I mean, I was at Sheffield, and Sheffield United, Sheffield Wednesday is a big derby. You look at Portsmouth and Southampton, Norwich and Ipswich, they've all got the little bit of history, and they all mean a hell of a lot to the local people and the supporters of them clubs. But the Celtic and Rangers one means a lot more than football.
Do you know how many you've been to?
Celtic Rangers?
Yeah.
Probably been to about five.
All at Celtic Park?
Both.
Okay, both?
Both, yeah. And it wasn't enjoyable because I was on the wrong end of the... I support Celtic, so I was in at Ibrox when Rangers had the best team, Celtic had the worst team. Then I was at Celtic Park just a couple of years ago when Rangers were, coming up through the leagues back in the Premier League, and Celtic beat them 5-0 to win the 7th trophy and title in a year. And I was at that game. It was brilliant. There was a huge disappointment that they didn't get 7 goals to win the 7th championship, and it was 7 in a row, not 7th championship.
Yeah. Okay, that's brilliant. Another one that's kind of getting a bit more charged every time we play it is Indy Detroit. And it's kind of becoming a nice little rivalry as well. But you haven't played. We haven't played at Detroit yet this season, but you've been to Keyworth before, right?
Yeah. Played them in the Open Cup for Minnesota.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the more unique kind of setups in the USL Championship, being right inside of a neighborhood, and stadium was built in 1936. Kind of just what were your thoughts?
It reminded me very much of stadiums back in England, like the lower league stadiums. Good atmosphere, close to the pitch, like I said, in a suburban area, little neighbourhood. So it was really good. So I'd like the same result. We won that game 3-1.
Yeah, we'll like that, definitely. The last game of the season is away to Tampa Bay, and just want to take a minute. They were rocked by Hurricane Helene. Hearing that Al Lang is in pretty bad shape, so I just any thoughts to.
Yeah, everybody, feel for everybody that's gone through that, and football secondary when it comes to anything like that happens, especially to people that we know it's happened to in terms of it's rocked Tampa Bay in their stadium, but I think the bigger picture is people have lost life, so football secondary.
Yeah. We opened our season there last year, and Al Lang is, again, one of the cooler venues and places to play in the league. So, sending thoughts down that way, and hope that everything at least eventually ends up all right in Tampa Bay. Anything else that we're forgetting before we close off today?
No, not from mine. We've got like I said, big month with 5 games. We're in a position where we can still qualify for a home game, which I think is important. If not, then we need to finish as high up as we possibly can, because that might get us another home game in a round further down the line. So we need to keep focused and get down the stretch this last 5, and then we'll see where that takes us once we get in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, we've seen in past years too. Anything can happen. It's one-offs, and Detroit beat Pittsburgh in the 1-8 last year. And on the day, we've seen that any team can be beaten in this league.
Yeah, and I just think we're not guaranteed a playoff spot yet, so we've got to, it's disrespectful to the likes of Hartford, North Carolina, Pittsburgh, the ones who are sitting outside it, and I go back to it, like we spoke about at the weekend, failure in sports, what is it? Because there's only one team that's going to win, so that means everybody else has failed, and that's where we've got to judge our progression. In terms of we've got to try and finish as high as we possibly can. Once we finish the season, we've got to try and win in the playoffs, because I think since COVID, I don't think we've won a playoff game, have we? No, I think we've only played one. So that's where we've not. We're saying, what's the difference between us and Louisville? Well, that tells you they're in the they've got the experience of being in these games, and we haven't. So we need to first off take the first step of regularly getting in the playoffs, and then you need to win in the playoffs, because we all know that that's different, and we haven't done that yet. And like I said, if we've only qualified for it once and we've only had one game, and you get beaten that, then you can't draw on that experience moving forward. So what we need to do is now reset and say, well, this is the benchmark of what we want to achieve, get in. We personally want to try, and the group want to get in to try and get an home game, because I think it's good for the supporters. Yeah,
for sure. And it's right there. 5 games left in this season. Hopefully the next time we're talking to you, it's about the playoffs and what will happen in the month of November. Until then, thank you for watching the Indy 11 Coaches Show podcast, brought to you by your Central Indiana Ford dealers. Once again, another thanks to 450 North Brewing and Spirits for being our official beverage partner. A reminder always to hit up shop.indy11.com for your latest merch stuff. And we will see you next time here on the Indy 11 Coaches Show.
This is the Indy 11 Coaches Show, brought to you by your Central Indiana Ford dealers. Be sure to like and follow this podcast, and check out other great podcasts on the All Indiana Podcast Network. To watch the video version of this podcast, subscribe to the Indy 11 YouTube channel.